It's Wednesday, January 26, 2011. I'm talking to Danielle Smith, the leader of the Wild Rose Alliance Party. How are you doing today, Danielle?
I'm doing great, Stephen. How are you?
Pretty good. So, what happened yesterday?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, it was reported that the premier of our province, Mr. Ed Stelmach, announced his resignation. I think what actually he did is he announced his intention to resign because, in fact, he is still our premier and he's still going to continue controlling the legislative agenda through the spring session. He is still going to be the premier when the new budget comes in, and he actually hasn't announced a date that he's going to resign. I think people are talking about it being at the end of this legislative session in the spring, with a new vote being held in June. But for the time being, he has just announced his intention to step aside. I think that he, as a man who served 25 years in public life, he deserves a measure of respect, of course, for giving up that amount of his life in service of the public. But I have been saying that I don't want to sugarcoat it. It's been very clear that from the beginning, the reason why I ran for the leadership of the Wild Rose Party was to replace Premier Stelmach as premier of this province. And that's still my intention. We're still intending to put forward a full slate of candidates in the next election with a full policy platform. And we're hoping that we can earn the trust of Albertans so that we can change this government after the next election.
Okay, well, I'm sure you appreciate there's a lot of political buzz going around Edmonton and around the province, and actually throughout Canada. It made national news yesterday, especially the speculation of who might step in to fill the void, whether it's yourself. But in the immediate term, PCs need a new leader. What have you been hearing on ground level?
Well, I can tell you that somebody floated the idea that I would run for the PC leadership, and I should just clear the air here. I said that was the dumbest idea I ever heard. The reason why I ran for the leadership of this party is because I saw that we were going to be able to build a new movement, and we're rising in the polls. There's no way that I would leave this party to join a party that I think is on its way out. And I do think that the PCs are on their way out. In some ways, it doesn't really matter who they choose as leader. I think that anyone who chooses to lead that party is going to face a 40-year legacy of a party that now has an extremely tarnished brand. It's amazing, actually, how much damage has been done to the PC brand in this province in 4 short years. But I think what we're really seeing here is that people understand that we do have these kinds of huge seismic shifts from time to time in this province. And I think people are ready for that kind of change. So whatever it is they do in their political contest, whoever it is they choose as leader, it doesn't really change our plans as a party. I'm going to continue on doing what I've been doing, and I'm looking forward to going to the polls, hopefully in March of 2012, and allowing Albertans to decide.
Okay, well, people are talking about Ted Morton as a potential successor, and I know some people in your party actually worked for him the last time around when he was running for the PCs. I might venture a guess that you might have even been supportive of that idea back before you had your eye on the Wild Rose. Would Ted Morton make a good premier in your view?
No, I think that what we've seen over the past number of years is that he has been at the cabinet table and been complicit in a lot of the bad decisions in the bad direction of this government. I think that that's fundamentally the problem that we see. We've only actually had 2 extraordinarily courageous Tory MLAs, and I think that has been Guy Boutilier and Raj Sherman. Both of them stood up for their constituents, and both of them got punished by being punted out of caucus. And I think what you're seeing now is we've got 24 cabinet ministers. A handful of them obviously are vying for the top job, but in my view, none of them have shown exceptional leadership. There have been a lot of times over the last year where I think Albertans needed someone to stand up for their interests, and the only party doing that has been us. We told the government that they needed to roll back the punitive royalty framework. Well, guess what? They did. We told the government they needed to take a more active stance in defending our Alberta oil sands. Well, they did. We told the government that they needed to put some measures in place to actually start putting some targets for healthcare delivery. Well, they did. And we've told them that they put together some property rights bills that are pretty damaging to property owners' interests, and now they're under review. So I think that people are going to see that having a Wild Rose opposition party has been very good for Albertans. And I think that they're going to see as well the fallacy that thinking that a single guy, Ted Morton, could change the party from within is just simply not the case. Ted, unfortunately, has to wear a couple of things. He was the Minister of Sustainable Resource Development when the land use framework was brought through, which is essentially a central planning document for all the land in the province that undermines landowner rights and takes away due compensation. He was the finance minister last year, bringing in record budget deficits, the biggest deficits in our province's history, and he's about to preside over a new budget that comes in with huge deficits. So I think he's lost a lot of credibility with the people who once supported him. I know I've been talking with many of my supporters and members today to find out whether or not they're going to be leaving to go back and work on the TED campaign, and I can tell you I haven't found any yet.
Okay, well, some people in Alberta might call Ted an extremist. I mean, yesterday we heard Ed Stelmach call the Wild Rose, or allude to the Wild Rose, as this wedge-style U.S.-American extremist politics. Does the Wild Rose have a hidden agenda, Danielle?
Well, if it is, we're hiding it in plain sight. We've taken a fairly proactive approach in getting our policy out there because we knew that people were interested in our party and where we stood. So we're in the process of rolling out 16 caucus policy statements with video accompanying each one. They're all available on our website, www.wildrosealliance.ca. We've rolled out the first 7. We've got 9 more to go, and we're going to keep on rolling those out. We don't see any reason to change our plans, and people will be able to see what it is we stand for. We're getting tremendous positive feedback from people who are in the various sectors where we've already released those policies, from our members, from other stakeholders. So I found it.
I just wonder what you make of the comparison of the sort of rhetoric we're hearing from Ed Stelmach that we've heard before from other parties, considerably the Federal Liberal Party.
Well, isn't that the truth? You've got it, Stephen. I mean, that's the thing that's so bizarre about it. I mean, first of all, it sounds pretty paranoid if you go back and read the Premier's comments. But I think secondly, Albertans have become accustomed to hearing this kind of demonization of first the Reform Party movement, then the Canadian Alliance, and even the Federal Conservatives now under the likes of Paul Martin and Jean Chrétien. And we've rejected it. We know that is a mischaracterization. I'm not quite sure why he's following the same kind of tactics, but I don't think it's going to resonate with Albertans. I think, in fact, what I find kind of remarkable about it is that it engages in the same kind of personality attacks that he accuses us of wanting to engage in. We are going to fight the next campaign on ideas, on issues, because we think ideas and issues matter, and we're going to fight it on the basis of including Albertans in making those decisions. That's the real difference with our party, is we actually are a grassroots party that believes that everyday Albertans have a right to have a say in how their government implements policy and the direction their governments take. This is the reason why there's a fundamental disconnect right now with Albertans and the governing PCs, is they've lost that grassroots nature. They no longer listen to their members. They no longer listen to Albertans. They're completely off track. They make mistakes. They don't know how to correct course. And I don't see that changing under a new leader. But, I think also, I would say, one of the things that I pointed out yesterday in some of the media interviews is the only party that is engaged in the politics of personal destruction is the PCs. When Dr. Raj Sherman stood up and talked about the crisis in the healthcare system and got kicked out of caucus, they started trying a smear campaign on him by calling him mentally unstable. That to me is the worst kind of politics, and I can tell you it's not the kind of politics our party engages in. It's certainly the kind of politics we've seen the governing party engage in, and I don't think there's a place for it in politics in this province.
Now let me go back to where you were talking about the grassroots, or the lack of grassroots, of the PC Alberta party. Do you think that their membership has a decision to make, and their future membership has a decision to make? Do you think that they're going to elect a right-winger such as yourself to sort of head you off at the pass, or do you think that there's going to be this large sort of vacuum in the Premier's office where every special interest group sort of fills that void? What do you think is, what would you think is the best track for the Alberta PC in order to win the next election? Well,
you'll have to talk to some other pundits about that, because I'm not interested in seeing the PCs win the next election. I don't know what it is the members will decide. I mean, I think part of the problem with their process is that they do have these instant members that can show up at the ballot box via membership.
Danielle, your mic is a little off.
Say again?
Your mic is a little off.
Oh, do you want me to, I'll restart
That's good. I hear you again.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think that the problem that we're seeing is with the PC process for choosing their new leader is they have you can show up at the ballot box and buy a membership right at the ballot box and then rip it up as soon as you leave. So I think that doesn't lend itself to the most principled and committed supporters coming out and voting in the leadership contest. It actually opens it up for some manipulation by sort of last-minute instant voters. I think that's probably what we saw in the leadership race last time, which resulted in the victory for Mr. Stelmach. So the rules aren't going to change, and under those rules, I think that there's a real possibility that the special interests will stack the ballot halls, and you're going to end up with a result that is very hard to predict. Our party does things a little bit differently. We have a one member, one vote contest, but we have a membership cutoff 2 weeks in advance, because I think if you're really interested in joining a political party, you can get yourself organized far enough in advance to be able to buy a membership and really research the candidates. So I think in some ways...
You're predicting more of the same then for the PC Alberta.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that that's something that they're going to have to grapple with if they get another outcome that they're not happy with. But I think that's something that they're going to have to deal with. And I think for our purposes, we're more interested in just building our party, and we'll see what comes of their race at the end of it. I'm pretty excited about the next election being an election that's going to be fought on ideas. I think this is going to be a pretty exciting time in Alberta politics.
Well, let me ask you, what is the next election going to be about, in your view? What is the Wild Rose putting in the front window for the next election?
Well, I think for us, it's going to be asking Albertans which party is most ready to govern. And I think that part of the problem we've seen with the PC is that they've lost the ability to govern. I think that if Albertans have some confidence that a new group coming in with new ideas and a credible team to be able to step right into those cabinet positions, I think they'll be prepared to take those strides. I think that they want a party that believes in personal responsibility, that believes in freedom, and that government's role is to protect individual freedoms, that believes in decentralized decision making, that the provincial level of government isn't always right and isn't always in need of meddling in their affairs, a government that's interested in streamlining the investment climate to attract business and make this province the best place in the country to live, to work, to raise a family and start a business. I think that those are the things that Albertans are going to assess. I don't think it's going to be fought on a single issue. I think it's really going to be fought on the overall vision of what it is Alberta can be. Albertans believe that we're exceptional. I think we're accustomed to leading the country. I don't know if that's going to offend any of your viewers across the country, but we've become accustomed to thinking that our role is to be an innovator and to show the way and to lead the way and be proud of that. And we feel at the moment that we're kind of mediocre and that our government is not expressing the aspirations that we would want it to express. So I think that that's what is going to happen. We're going to have the next election fought on who can make us feel proud again. And we're hoping to put forward a positive agenda for change that people can buy into.
Well, great. Well, on that note, I'd like to thank you for joining me this evening, and thanks for the interview. And
anytime. We'll talk again, Stephen. Appreciate your interest.
And things are only going to get more interesting, I'm pretty sure.
We're going to try to keep it interesting for you guys in the media.
Okay. Have a good night.
Take care.